On Saturday, February 22nd, Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington was home to one of the greatest sporting events of all time. Or it could have been. Let's dig in. Yeah, I pretty much mean what I said. UFC Fight Night Cejudo vs. Song had the potential to be one of the greatest events of all time. The prelims started off finish. And the main card, well, let's talk about it. The main card had the potential to start off the same way. Alonzo Menifield and Julius Walker led off, and Alonzo Menifield is a dangerous guy. You don't want to get hit by him, right? So you might expect that they would have a banger, and it won fight of the night. It was interesting, but it went to decision, and it was a split decision. And I think that despite Julius Walker trying to stink it up the entire time by pushing Menifield against the fence, Menifield managed to make it a good fight. So props to him. He was a big favorite, so I'm not surprised that he won. But the next fight on the card was Gene Silva versus Melsik Bogdasarian. And that was a good fight, no doubt, but no thanks to anybody other than Gene Silva. And so at this point, you're probably thinking, well, things are starting off okay. I mean, we have fight of the night in fight 1, performance of the night in fight 2, but hang with me. Gene Silva did have one of the greatest performances I've ever seen by a guy who, yeah, was a big favorite, but I mean, we're in the age of big favorites coming in and looking like they're at even odds. Bo Nickel will come in and I guess he'll dominate his opponent, but that's not really enough when you're a minus 900 favorite. So hang with me and we'll take a look at Gene Silva's fight. So what you're looking at is Gene Silva's fight, the final few seconds of it. I'm going to turn the sound off. You kind of saw it blurred in the intro. I just want you to look and see what you see. Yeah, that's pretty much right. You're correct in thinking that you just saw a man who knocked somebody down and then almost screwed it up really bad by asking the ref to end the fight when he doesn't actually want to stop the fight yet because he doesn't think he has a reason. And so what Gene Silva does, because when people get hit in the head and they go down, they cover their head. And so what he does is he just decides, okay, I'm going to take all your ribs home with me. And I don't understand why people don't do that more, first of all. I understand it might not be incredibly effective, and if you're gassed, it's hard to throw 4 elbows in 3 seconds and get the ref to stop the fight. And in this case, I think no matter what he did, the ref would have stopped the fight because he probably should have right off the bat. The guy was out of it. So with that said, I think that Gene Silva had a beautiful performance, and I think that he made a really smart move toward the end after he got the knockdown. He could have easily just sort of given up on it and, you know, gone and slowed it down and done something lame, but he wanted to give us an entertaining fight. So shout out to Gene Silva. Props. Hope he gets a big fight next. And yeah, let's talk about the next fight. So the next fight is Rob Font versus Gene Matsumoto. And Rob Font did okay. It was a split decision, and he came in as the underdog. He looks old. He looks really bad, honestly, with no hair. Tell me if you think the same thing that I do, but I think he looks awful with no hair. Dead even on the strikes, 113 to 113. Significant strikes, 95 to 77. And so let's look at this by round. So significant strikes, 21 to 7 in the first round. And then 34 to 29 in the second round, and 40 to 41 in the third round. So again, pretty even fight outside of the first round. And let's just look at how the judges scored it. So one judge had it 29-28 Font, giving him the first and the third. One judge had it 29-28 Matsumoto, giving him the first and second. And Mike Bell, the third judge, green judge, had the same as Derek Cleary did, the first judge, so 29-28. Rob Font for winner by split decision. I don't want to turn this into too big of a Sal D'Amato roast party, but he's literally always on the losing end of split decisions. Like, he's never correct. Like, he just never agrees with anybody else. And I don't know if it necessarily always means that he's wrong, but I think he's a horrible judge, to be completely honest. Was he on the main event? So he had the main event 30-27, which isn't terrible, especially considering that these two other guys, the one round that they gave Cejudo was a different round, and I had it 30-27. So I guess I can't say that he's always wrong, but he always feels like he has to be different, and it's annoying. So yeah, let's move on to the next fight, because this one's going to piss me off. The next fight on the card was Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez. So this was the co-main event, and it was a 3-round co-main, and these guys have fought before. They fought in LFA, I think it was, and Hernandez took the decision, I think, in a 5-round main event for the championship. And he ragdolled the piss out of Allen the whole time. And sort of that's what we saw here. There were times where it was dodgy and both of them almost had a submission and you thought, oh my God, one of these guys is about to tap the other. It didn't end up happening. Fluffy won by unanimous decision. Brendan Allen did take the first round, in my opinion, and I think on all the scorecards. Let's take a look. He took the first on every scorecard. And as a matter of fact, every scorecard was the same for this. So congratulations to Sal D'Amato for not screwing this one up too. Brendan Allen, he came out and he looked good, particularly in the first round. 30-10 strikes. The problem was it was 8 significant strikes. And so that just doesn't mean a lot. Didn't do a lot of damage. I mean, there were some, but you look, he had 8 significant strikes to the head the entire fight. 4 in the first round. 0 in the second round. 1 leg kick in the third round. And in the second round was the only significant strike he had. So that's pretty clearly a fluffy round. And then same sort of deal, just 0 output by Brendan Allen. I understand he's good. The hair's not doing him any favors. I think he needs to go back to what he had before. But all in all, I mean, this was kind of just not a masterclass by Anthony Hernandez, but a good fight. And it sort of showed that Brendan Allen just can't beat him, unfortunately. And you want to look at these guys and say, well, like, Brendan Allen, he's got it. He's got what it takes. Like, he's how tall is this guy? He's 6'2". And I mean, he's still pretty young. He's got a 6'3" reach. And Hernandez he's shorter by 2 inches. So he's 6 foot. So both of these guys have a decent frame. He trains at his own gym, Team Fluffy. Where does Brendan Allen train? He trains at Killcliff. Yeah. So both of these guys have pretty good teams. I would actually say Brendan Allen's team is probably a little bit better, but that doesn't really matter. He just didn't come in with it. You know what I mean? He came in, he didn't bring his A game, and he sort of got cleaned out. So good looks to Fluffy, and let's talk about the main event. This was probably the most disappointing main event I've seen in a long time. I was really excited. You guys saw my video, and if you didn't, I'll link it in the description, and I think it'll show at the end of the video in the end cards. So go feel free to watch that. You can actually go watch it before this if you want, but you already know what happened from the fight, so you might as well just watch it after. I talk about all sorts of stuff. I talk about basically the last week of MMA and UFC news. So if you want to go check that out, go ahead. And while you're here, if you're enjoying it so far, leave me a like down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this main event. So basically, what we have is an extremely disappointing main event. I talked about the card, the scorecards earlier, in that I had it 30-27 with Sal D'Amato for Cejudo when the fight ended in the third round. And so if you didn't watch, basically how the fight ended was sometime in the middle of the third round, Song Yadong tossed a few fingers into the eyes of Henry Cejudo. And unfortunately, Henry said he couldn't see, but he continued the fight. And so what happens when you continue the fight until after the third round in a 5-round fight is at the end of the third round, more than half of the scheduled rounds have been completed. And so what that means is, as opposed to being a disqualification or a no contest, they go to the scorecards. And the scorecards obviously were not in favor of Henry Cejudo, and it was really just kind of an underwhelming end to the fight. Song Yadong had won at least the majority of the 3 rounds to that point, and so he just won by decision. And I just found it really disappointing and not exciting at all. Henry Cejudo was starting to pick it up a little bit. They were scrapping. He sort of said, let's run it back. We were scrapping. We were starting to get into it. Look at our faces. We were going to war. And I don't disagree necessarily, but I think it was pretty clear that Henry was not on Song's level in this fight. I mean, maybe he could have pulled it out. He was swinging for the fences at times, but I don't think it would have mattered in the grand scheme of things. I think Henry probably would have been finished, and if not, he just would have been dog walked for another 2 rounds if he could have seen. So, yeah, I just don't see the benefit to running this one back, and I think that there's probably a better fight for Song in the future that isn't Henry. So let's talk about what that fight would be. For me, I think a good fight for Song Yadong at this point might be Deiveson Figueiredo. He just lost to Peter Yan, got absolutely dog walked. And so basically what that fight would do, in my opinion, for Song would give him sort of a chance to have a step up in competition, because I think he will take Henry's number 7 spot in the rankings. Remember, that's only 1 spot up from where he sits right now at number 8. And so I think what that does is sort of gets his foot back in the door to the top contenders. I want to look at the rankings with you guys briefly. So let me pull those up. So if you look here, you'll see that Henry Cejudo is 7, Song Yadong is 8. And so above Song Yadong, you have Marlon Vera, Deiveson Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen, Umar, Peter Yan, and Sean O'Malley. Umar just lost a title fight, and so I could see maybe that fight being of interest to Song Yadong. The problem is I think Umar would probably outstrike him and out-grapple him. Peter Yan, he just lost to, so you can't do that. Sean O'Malley's sort of in limbo. I think he only takes really big fights, so I don't see him fighting number 7. Deiveson Figueiredo, though, just lost to Peter Yan. And so I think that that's probably far enough up the rankings and from the top of the rankings to where it would be a decent fight. So that's the fight I would make next. I don't think Chito Vera is really a good fight for anybody. You're not going to finish him. Sean O'Malley kind of proved that, and I just don't think he gets the respect anymore that he probably did before the O'Malley fight. So I wouldn't necessarily find that to be an intriguing fight if I were Song Yadong. So yeah, I think that's what I would do next for him. And for Cejudo, honestly, he wants the Song fight, but I would retire. I wouldn't give him the Song fight if I were Dana White, and if I were Henry Cejudo, knowing I'm not getting a rematch. I just lost to number 8. I don't really want to go fight guys like Rob Font and Mario Batista. I would fight a guy like Jose Aldo, but that's just name value, and Jose Aldo just lost to Mario Batista, so I wouldn't necessarily take a fight much further down the rankings than I am right now, and you're not getting one above. Yeah, so let's talk about some MMA news now, just to close out the video. First thing up is that it looks like 316 is going to have a couple more fights. These are in the making, potentially per Full Violence on Twitter. Go ahead and LOL. See this down here. Kai Kara France versus Pantoja, and Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. I think that the Kayla Harrison and Juliana Pena fight might actually be interesting, because Kayla Harrison is a full-grown man. She could literally kill me in 30 seconds. And Pantoja, I mean, yeah, he has boring fights from time to time, but Kara France is a striker, and if they keep it on the feet, it could be interesting. So, zero aura, though. Look at the hair, or lack thereof. Just the 2 most busted hairlines in the world might be main eventing in Newark. That's pretty bad. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on those. Let's move to the next piece of news. The next piece of news is nothing huge. Just a Fight Night main event for Vegas 105. Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy. I know a lot of us were hoping for a Bryce Mitchell rematch after him literally praising Hitler. So we didn't get lucky this time, but maybe the winner of this fight will take on Mitchell. I'm going to take Lerone Murphy. I think Emmett's good, and he's got a lot of power, and obviously you have to consider that. Like, at any point, he could just throw an overhand and put basically anybody in the division, maybe in the world, to sleep. He's just the little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. So yeah. And then one last piece of news from Ariel Helwani. He thinks that potentially the UFC is waiting for Bilal and JDM before booking Islam and Ilya, because if JDM wins, Bilal will no longer be the champ, and Bilal and Islam are friends. And he thinks that Islam will move up to 170. And Topuria and Oliveira will be the fight at 155, for the belt. And I don't hate it, but I would much rather see the huge super fight that is Islam and Ilya. Obviously, I think a lot of people share that sentiment. I understand there are people who don't think he's deserving, and so maybe it would be interesting to see this fight, the Oliveira Topuria fight, regardless, and then him versus Islam if JDM doesn't win, or even if he does, maybe he defends against Ilya and either does or doesn't win, and then goes up to 170 regardless. So let me know what you think about all this stuff. Again, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you enjoyed what we went through today and you like this sort of video, again, let me know down in the comments what you think. Peace and love. Bye.